Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how you can use adjustment layers and blend modes to finish off your image with a range of different effects. Now if I bring up my layers panel here, you can see that I've got a composite image here with our background image of a fountain and then our subject placed on top. And we can use adjustment layers to tone our image. Now adjustment layers work by affecting all of the layers below them in the layer stack. So they're useful in a composite like this because we can apply an effect on top of our two individual layers here. We can do that by going to the create adjustment layer icon here at the bottom of the layers panel, and we can choose an adjustment. Let's perhaps start off with a curves adjustment layer, and notice how that now sits on its own layer in the layer stack above our two images. We can drag our curve line here in the properties panel upwards to lighten the image or down to darken the image, or we can use an S-shaped curve which allows us to boost contrast. So we can drag one point up around this portion of the curve line here, and we can use another point down here to peg back the bottom part of the line here to give us extra punch to our image like this. If I toggle that adjustment off and on, you can see how that's affecting my image. Now let's perhaps add a second adjustment layer. I'm going to use this layer to tweak the colors. So I'm going to click the create adjustment layer icon again, and this time let's use color balance. This is the great thing about using adjustment layers. We can build up our effect on separate layers in this way. Now this gives us a different set of properties here in the properties panel. We can use these three color sliders to skew the colors within our image. So if I drag this top slider here towards cyan, you can see that adds a lovely cyan tone to our image. We can perhaps add a touch of blue as well, and if I toggle that layer off and on, you can see how that's skewing the colors in my image. And because it's skewing the colors both in our subject and in the background, it's helping those different elements gel together. And if it's slightly too strong, and I think this is a little bit too strong, we can always go to our opacity slider here in the layers panel and drop that down. So I'm going to bring that down to around about there, I think, to soften the effect slightly. Another adjustment layer that gives us control over colors is the photo filter adjustment layer. And we can use this to add either a warming or a cooling effect, or we can add a different color tint using these different color options down here in the filter preset. So I'm going to go for the yellow preset here, and I could perhaps just increase the density a little bit to up the strength of my yellow effect, and I'm happy with that. Again, I can toggle it off and on, and you can see how it's affecting our image. And I think perhaps we'll add one final adjustment layer. I'm going to go for a curves adjustment layer again, because curves is one of the most powerful and one of the most versatile adjustments. So we'll add another curves adjustment layer, and this time we'll use it to skew the colors even more. So to do this, we can select a different channel here in the drop down at the top here. So we can go from RGB to red, green or blue. Let's perhaps select the blue channel here. And we can create some really nice color shifts by adjusting the top and bottom point of my diagonal line here. You see there's a little square in the bottom left corner here. We can drag that upwards slightly, and this allows us to add a touch of blue into the shadow tone. So you can see we're just tinting those shadows with blue. And similarly with the top point here, if we drag that down, we can tint the highlights with a touch of yellow like this. Let's perhaps try a different color channel now. So let's go for the red color channel, and we can drag our curve line upwards or downwards to introduce red or cyan. So I'm going to perhaps add a touch of red to the highlights and then make a very shallow S shape here to add a touch of cyan down into the shadows. So I'm just going to make it very subtle like this. And let's also perhaps add a green adjustment here, and let's perhaps just drag it down very slightly, or perhaps up very slightly, I think, to add a touch of green to our image like this. And if I toggle that adjustment off and on, you can see how that skews the colors for me. I think perhaps we'll go back to the RGB, and again just plot an S-shaped curve on our RGB channel as well, just to lift the overall image and give us a bit more punch and a bit more oomph to our image, and I'm happy with that. Now another thing we can do is start blending in textures to give our image a slightly degraded feel. So to do this, I can go to my image here of a texture, and just using the move tool here, I can drag this image across to my main image. So I can click and drag it up to the tab of my main image, and still holding the mouse button down, I can bring it in and release to copy that texture image over. And if we need to, we can hit Command or Control and T to resize it to fit our document, but my texture here quite nicely fits over my document, so I don't need to transform it. So now what I can start doing is blending it with all of the layers below using the blend mode drop down here at the top of the layers panel. So we can choose from these different blend modes. Let's see how darken affects my image. So this allows the darker pixels on that layer to show through, and that's really not giving us the effect that we want. So what I can do is cycle through all of the different blend modes now using a keyboard shortcut. I can hit Shift plus or Shift minus. So I'll go Shift plus, and you can see how we're able to cycle through all of the different blend modes, and we can just keep going until we find an effect that we like. Let's perhaps go through all the different modes here, and I think if we go back through, I think one that I quite like here, one that often works with textures, is overlay or soft light. So I think I'll go for the overlay blend mode here. And of course, as with all of our other layers, we can lower the layer opacity to tone down the effect if we like. So I'll bring it to about 70%. If I toggle it off and on, you can see how that's affecting our image here. Again, I'll toggle it off and on. It just gives our image a nice textured quality. And that's it. So let's take a quick look back through our layers here. This was our original composite here with our two images. We then used a curves adjustment layer to boost the contrast, a color balance adjustment to add a touch of cyan, photo filter gave us a yellow cast. We then used another curves adjustment layer to skew our colors before adding in our texture to finish off. And that's it.